Traveling opens the door to new horizons, cultures, and adventures, but sometimes it leads you into the shadows. These 4 true stories from travelers across the globe reveal the darker side of exploration. Moments where curiosity turned to dread and the unfamiliar became terrifying. From eerie encounters in remote villages to unsettling experiences in bustling hostels, these tales will make you think twice before embarking on your next journey. In the autumn of 2021, I was a freelance photographer traversing Eastern Europe, chasing the beauty of forgotten places. My backpack was heavy with camera gear, my heart light with the thrill of discovery. I'd spent weeks wandering through crumbling castles, abandoned villages, and cobblestone streets, capturing the raw essence of places time had left behind. My journey had been smooth: hostels, local buses, and chance encounters with kind strangers. But one day in a quiet Romanian town changed everything. The town was a postcard of serenity. Narrow streets lined with pastel-colored houses, their wooden shutters weathered by centuries. I'd spent the morning photographing the town's medieval charm, my lenses drinking in the details of cracked stone walls and ivy-draped rooftops. I was due to meet friends in a city called Sibiu, about an hour and a half away, and decided to skip the bus in favor of a cab. My heavy gear was weighing me down, and I craved the ease of a direct ride. After asking locals, I got the number of a driver and dialed. 10 minutes later, a rusty sedan rolled up, its paint chipped and windows smudged. The driver was an older man, perhaps in his late 50s, with a face carved by time. Deep lines etched into his weathered skin, a thick mustache obscuring his lips, and sharp, restless eyes that scanned the street like a hawk. His leather jacket was worn, frayed at the cuffs, and his demeanor was curt. "Sibiu?" I asked, leaning toward the open window. He jerked his thumb toward the back seat, muttering, "Get in." His voice was gravelly, tinged with an accent I couldn't quite place. Something about him felt off, but I chalked it up to cultural differences. I was seeking authenticity after all. This was part of the adventure. I slid into the back seat, my camera bag beside me, and we set off. The town faded behind us, replaced by rolling hills and patches of forest. For the first half hour, the ride was uneventful, the hum of the engine blending with the occasional crackle of gravel under the tires. Then, without warning, the driver veered off the main road onto a narrow dirt path that snaked into a dense forest. The transition was abrupt, the smooth asphalt giving way to a bumpy trail, barely wide enough for the car. My stomach tightened. "Is this a shortcut?" I asked, my voice betraying a hint of unease. The driver didn't turn, his eyes fixed on the path. "Yes, shorter way," he said, his tone flat, devoid of warmth. The trees closed in around us, their branches forming a canopy that blocked out the sun. The path grew rougher, more like a trail for hikers than a road for cars. I glanced out the window, searching for signs of civilization, but saw only endless rows of pines and underbrush. My gut screamed that something was wrong. "Are you sure this goes to Sibiu?" I pressed, louder this time, hoping for reassurance. He glanced at me in the rearview mirror, his eyes cold and unreadable. "Faster way," he repeated, his voice a monotone echo. The forest thickened, the trail narrowing until it was little more than a rutted path. My heart began to race. I tried to stay calm, telling myself he knew these roads better than I did. But the deeper we went, the more isolated we became. No houses, no cars, no signs of life. Just the oppressive silence of the woods. Panic clawed at me. "Look," I said, my voice trembling. "I'd rather stick to the main road. Can you turn back?" He cut me off before I could finish. "No turning back now," he said, his tone sharp, his gaze locked on the path. fear surged through me, cold and visceral. I gripped my phone, thinking to call for help, but before I could, he glanced back, his eyes meeting mine in the mirror. "Phone won't help you out here," he said, as if reading my thoughts. His voice was calm, almost mocking. The car rattled on for another 5 minutes, the trail growing so narrow that branches scraped the sides of the vehicle. Then abruptly, he stopped in a small clearing, the trees so dense they seemed to swallow the light. My pulse pounded in my ears. Every instinct screamed to run, but I was frozen, my mind racing through impossible scenarios. The driver turned, his face half-shadowed, and leaned toward me. "You need to run," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Run now!" I stared, unsure if I'd heard him correctly. "What?" I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. "Run," he repeated, his tone leaving no room for doubt. "Don't look back." My body moved before my mind could catch up. I grabbed my bag, flung open the door, and bolted into the forest. Branches tore at my skin, roots tripped my feet. But I ran, driven by pure adrenaline. The silence of the woods was deafening, broken only by my ragged breathing and the crunch of leaves underfoot. I expected to hear him chasing me, but there was nothing. Just an eerie stillness. After what felt like hours, my legs burning and chest heaving, I stumbled onto a paved road. It wasn't the one we'd started on, but it was a lifeline. A kind elderly couple in a passing car picked me up and drove me to the nearest town. Later, locals told me stories of drivers who tested tourists, scaring them for amusement, or to teach them a lesson about trusting strangers. Was that what happened? Or had I narrowly escaped something far worse? Those eyes in the rearview mirror, that final command to run, they haunt me still. I'll never know if he was toying with me or saving me from something lurking in those woods, but the chill of that day lingers, a reminder that even the most picturesque places can hide darkness. As a freelance designer, I thrive on the freedom to work from anywhere. In 2024, I decided to spend a month in a quaint European town, drawn by its storybook charm. Cobblestone streets, ivy-covered cottages, and rolling hills that promised inspiration. I found an Airbnb that seemed perfect. A cozy house run by a host named Stefan, with glowing reviews praising his warmth and the property's serene location. The photos showed a rustic interior with lace curtains, wooden beams, and antique furniture. I booked it immediately, eager for a creative retreat. When I arrived, Stefan greeted me with a warm handshake and a genuine smile. He was tall, in his 50s, with a calm demeanor that put me at ease. The house was even better than the photos. Creaky floorboards, soft light filtering through stained glass windows, and a faint scent of lavender. Stefan gave me a tour, pointing out local cafes and hiking trails, and I settled in, feeling like I'd found a home away from home. The first few days were idyllic. I worked at a wooden desk by a window overlooking the garden, and explored the town's narrow streets, snapping photos of flower markets and stone bridges. But soon, small things began to feel off. I'd catch fleeting shadows outside the window, quick glimpses of movement that vanished when I looked up. At first, I thought it was a neighbor, but the shadows persisted, always at the edge of my vision. One afternoon, I saw him, Stefan, standing just beyond the garden, staring through the window. His posture was casual, but his gaze was intense, unwavering. When he noticed me looking, he waved and gestured toward the rose bushes, as if tending to them. "Everything okay?" I called, stepping outside. "Oh, yes," he replied smoothly, his smile disarming. "Just checking on the garden. Don't mind me." I nodded, but his presence felt intrusive. like he was watching me, not the plants. Over the next few days, it happened again. Stefan appearing outside, always with an excuse. Checking the fence, inspecting the shutters. Each time he'd offer that same polite smile, but it began to feel rehearsed, almost mechanical. I told myself it was just small-town hospitality, but unease crept in. One night I woke around 2 a.m., my laptop still glowing from a late work session. The house was silent, save for the creak of old wood settling. As I stood to stretch, I felt a prickling sensation, like I wasn't alone. Then I saw it, a faint shadow under my bedroom door, as if someone stood just outside. My heart thudded. I listened, holding my breath, and heard a soft shuffle, like a foot shifting on the floorboards. Steeling myself, I called out, "Hello?" The shadow froze, then moved slightly. A soft knock followed. My mind raced. Burglar? Neighbor? Something worse? I cracked the door open to find Stefan standing in the dim hallway, his eyes glassy, almost vacant. "Oh, you're awake," he said, his voice overly cheerful. "Just checking in, making sure you're comfortable." "Stefan, it's 2 a.m., I said, my voice tight. "Why are you here?" He blinked as if snapping out of a daze. "Thought I heard noise," he said, his tone unconvincing. His eyes drifted past me, scanning the room. "I'm fine," I said, forcing calm. "Thanks." He lingered, his gaze lingering on me, then nodded and shuffled away. I locked the door, my hands shaking, and sat on the bed replaying the encounter. Was he really checking for a noise? Or had he been standing there watching? The next morning, a note on the kitchen table read, "Had to check the pipes. Sorry for the late visit." The handwriting was messy, unlike Stefan's usual neat scroll. I wanted to leave, but part of me wondered if I was overreacting. That night, I wedged a chair against the door and kept my phone close. Around midnight, I heard it again. Soft footsteps pausing outside my room. No knock, no voice, just the faint creak of floorboards. I lay frozen, barely breathing, until the sound retreated. I left at dawn, packing my bags and slipping out without a word. I reported the incident to the rental platform, but when I checked later, Stefan's listing was still active, its reviews glowing. I still see that shadow under the door, his glassy eyes in the hallway. Was he just an eccentric host, or something more sinister? I'll never know, but I've learned to trust my instincts, and to always lock the door. Every summer, I seek out a new destination to reconnect with myself and the world. In 2024, I chose a remote village in South America, nestled high in the Andes. The village was a hidden gem. Cobblestone streets, whitewashed houses with colorful doors, and flower boxes bursting with marigolds. The locals were warm, their smiles genuine, and I felt welcome from the moment I arrived. I stayed at a family-run inn, a charming place with wooden beams and a balcony overlooking the village square. My hosts, Rosa and her husband, treated me like family, and their teenage son practiced his English with enthusiasm. The village was a paradise of simplicity. I spent my days hiking the hills, sketching in the market, and helping Rosa with small chores. But on my second day, I noticed an older man watching me from the edge of the square. He was in his late 70s, his skin weathered like old leather, his eyes dark and piercing. Unlike the other villagers, he never smiled or nodded, just stared, his gaze heavy with intent. I brushed it off, assuming he was curious about outsiders, but the staring continued. On the third day, I saw him again, standing across from a cafe where I sipped coffee. His eyes never left me, even when I met his gaze. I tried to focus on my drink, but his presence was like a weight on my chest. That night, I closed the shutters tightly, as if they could block out his stare. Sleep eluded me, my mind replaying his unblinking eyes. The next morning I hiked into the hills, hoping the fresh air would clear my unease. The landscape was breathtaking, golden sunlight spilling over green slopes, the air crisp and clean. But as I descended, I saw him again, standing at the edge of the path, half hidden by trees. His gaze was unwavering, chilling. I nodded politely and hurried past, my heart pounding. Back at the inn, I mentioned him to Rosa. "That's a mellow," she said, her voice hesitant. "He's lived here forever. Keeps to himself, harmless." Her words were meant to reassure, but her frown told another story. Over the next few days, Emila was everywhere, by the church, in the market near the inn. His presence felt like a shadow trailing me, his eyes always watching. On my final night, I lay in bed, the shutters locked tight. Around midnight, I heard footsteps on the gravel outside my window. They grew closer, then stopped. A soft rustling followed, like fingers brushing the shutters, testing the handle. My breath caught as the handle turned, stopped by the lock. Then a whisper so faint I almost missed it. "I just want to see you." Panic seized me. I called Rosa, my hands trembling. The footsteps retreated, and soon Rosa and her husband were at my door, their faces grim. "You're safe," Rosa's husband said, but his voice wavered. I didn't sleep, sitting vigil until dawn. When I left, I crossed the square, and there was Emelo, watching me with that same cold gaze. I never looked back. That village was a paradise, but Emelo's eyes left a scar. Was he a harmless eccentric or something more? I'll never know, but I've learned that even the warmest places can hide chilling secrets. Hostels are my travel staple, vibrant hubs of shared stories and instant friendships. In 2023, I booked a stay at a popular hostel in Spain, drawn by its lively vibe and stellar reviews. The place was everything I'd hoped for: colorful walls, nightly events, and a dorm-style room buzzing with travelers. I hit it off with Olivia, a fellow backpacker, and we explored the city together, swapping stories over tapas. Among our roommates was Lucas, a laid-back guy in his mid-20s with blonde hair and a casual smile. At first he seemed friendly, asking the usual hostile questions. "Where are you from? How long are you staying?" But soon, his presence felt oppressive. He was always nearby, lingering in conversations, his eyes lingering on me with a strange half-smile. One evening, as Olivia and I planned dinner, Lucas hovered, pretending to scroll on his phone, but clearly watching. When he asked to join us, I agreed. It was a hostel after all, but his questions felt too personal, his gaze too intense. The next morning, I returned from a solo outing to find Lucas sitting on the bed across from mine, as if waiting. "You're back early," he said, his tone oddly relieved. I brushed it off, but his constant presence began to unnerve me. When Olivia left for another city, I didn't tell him, wary of his interest in my plans. That night, I returned late from dinner with new friends. The dorm was dark, the only light a faint glow from the window. As I settled into bed, I heard a soft shuffle, like someone breathing nearby. My eyes adjusted and I froze. Lucas stood at the foot of my bed, staring down with that eerie half-smile. My heart raced. "Lucas, what are you doing?" I whispered, my voice shaking. "Just making sure you're okay," he said, his tone calm, almost amused. "It's the middle of the night," I said, gripping the blanket. "Go back to bed." He didn't move at first, his eyes tracing my face. Then he nodded, whispered, "Sleep well," and returned to his bed. I lay awake, fear coursing through me. At dawn, I packed my bags and left without a word, catching a train to the next town. Lucas's smile haunted me, a reminder that even in a crowded hostel, you're never truly safe. Now I travel with more caution, my suitcase always packed, my back to the wall. That the thrill of travel comes with risks. Have you ever felt watched or unsafe on a journey? Share your story below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share these chilling tales with a friend. Stay cautious out there. Your next adventure might hold more than you expect.